Welcome to Immigrant Bazaar podcast, a weekly podcast for immigrants by immigrants. In this podcast, we talk about topics that matter to immigrants living in the US. As usual, your hosts are myself, Bahram.
And Anwar.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anwar. Good to see you as always. And today's topic is coding for kids. And for this episode, we have Bekzot Azimov. He's a DevOps engineer at Amazon. He has a very extensive IT background. Bekzot, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, hello guys. Thanks for inviting me. I'm Bekzot Azimov. I work at Amazon as DevOps engineer. I've been in IT industry for 7-8 years now. And on my free time, I teach kids coding at Uzbek American Association of Chicago on weekends. And I myself live in Chicago. I have 3 kids, 2 daughters, 1 son. And I'm originally from Kyrgyzstan, city Osh. I came to US about 12 years ago and still live in Chicago.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bekzot. I mean, it's very nice to have you in our show. You said the topic of kids coding. You brought up great point about as you do it not as your professional, as something that you do it on your free time. So we all want to do. We all want to make sure that our kids also get to learn. As a parents, we want to teach our kids to do something that's going to be useful. So it's great that you're spending your time teaching kids how to code. Anwar, do you want to start with questions that we have for Bekzot?
Yeah, of course. I'm actually happy to have someone who is so advanced in their own profession and also volunteering for the community. That's always nice to see. So I was wondering, to start with the basics, what are the general tools that you would suggest? Any online courses? How do you go about getting the material that you can teach the kids?
Yeah, currently there are many sources out there that can teach code to kids, because a lot of big companies trying to invest in that because they know in the future right now they're short of workforce, and they would like to prepare kids for that future, and they know all the big companies are now technology companies, and they know the importance of coding and all this knowledge, even in near future. So for that reason, they spend a lot of money to create platforms, teaching sites, apps, everything, wherever possible. For example, we use code.org currently for our community kids. Code.org is really good for teachers and kids. They've designed the site specifically for teaching kids, and especially this site, this platform is used in American schools too. They teach kids preschool or early age school, and even in middle school. They use this platform. It is ready platform. It has courses for different ages, and a lot of big companies like Facebook, Apple, Google, Amazon, they all invest a lot of money to this platform. And this is not the only platform. There are many platforms out there that can teach kids code. One of them is Scratch, that I recommend to older age kids. It is created by MIT University, and that is really extensive and really good too. And
that's a website too, right? Scratch.com or?
Yes, Scratch.com is a website too. And there is an app called Tinker. It is very good too. And most importantly, most of these sources are free for usage. You don't pay for them. And the reason they are free is, as I said, companies are investing a lot of money for them. So they can teach as much kids as possible. So there are, as I said, many sources for you to choose from. But what I would choose is code.org. First one is a little bit of kind of school looks like a school because it has programs that start from low to high. And again, like I wouldn't go with only one platform because nowadays kids have iPads, iPhone, like phones or computers. So I would choose multiple platforms and see what kids like.
Okay, great. Bekzot, as I promised before the show, we're gonna ask you some follow-ups as in between. So I have a follow-up question just to clarify. You mentioned great thing that the big companies, right, Amazon and Facebook and Google, all those guys invest money in this kind of resources so that kids start learning coding at the early stage, right? So what I wanted to clarify is, do they follow up with these kids as they grow? As kids grow, as they go to middle school and high school, do these companies somehow kind of keep, focus on these talents so to make sure that these kids are getting to the level they need once they finish high school and maybe university? These guys can be picked up from by these companies to work for them. Do they do any kind of follow-ups?
So right now it's not so popular that they do follow-ups because they are basically looking for these people right now, right? We don't have them yet, but this is kind of still an early age. But what I know is companies trying to make their own kind of study sessions or special courses. Like Amazon recently started a special teaching course kind of that they take all the people who are interested and teach them and try to change their positions or jobs to technology. So big companies are trying all the ways right now, right? Because they need them. So they need people who needs coding, IT industry. So they're trying all kinds of things, like other than trying to get them out on the market who already know or who graduated from schools. They're trying to gather people who are interested that are losing jobs, or like for example, who are coming from army vets that they don't have jobs but they just graduated or they finished um, their tenure. So basically all the companies, big companies, trying things like that slowly, right? So I'm pretty sure soon enough they're gonna have new things that is coming up that, as you said, could follow up kids who are doing good, or maybe even help them to get to university, right? Pay their tuitions, and from the school they already try to, you know, uh, prepare them for their company so they can come work for them. And right now, there are obvious ones, which is from the old times, right? The internship. So
Mm-hmm.
they try to take all the students in and teach them, or like try to show them and show them how good is their workplaces, all kinds of things in that 3 month, so they can come back after they graduate. So yeah, I'm pretty sure right now, even though they're not many, they're gonna be uh, these things coming up.
Okay, great. This is great. So this is at this early stages, but it is happening. So it's important for kids and their parents to make sure that they engage into this. So I guess one question I wanted to ask about this is, at what is the earliest age you can, as a parent, you can start thinking about, getting your kid, into the coding, see how, if they like it, if they have interest in it, what would be a personal suggestion in terms of age?
Yeah, my personal suggestion, like every kid is different, right? But nowadays things are changing so rapidly. It's not like before. So nowadays kids try to watch videos, play phones even before they speak, right? So that is the age of 1.5 and 2. They already know, like clicking buttons and all this kind of stuff that you wouldn't expect them to do. So what I would do is as early as possible, right? Because every kid is different. Some kids start early, some kids start a little late, and they're not the same. So some parents make a mistake of looking at some others who are very talented or maybe with exceptional skills and they look at it and say, oh, my kid is not like that, and they try to make their kids like that, or all kinds of mistakes we do. But uh, what we should do is start as early as possible, and they don't need to be coding. Like, we have different mindset when we say coding, programming, all that. But these kids, the way they doing, right, the way they watching video also is part of kind of IT related thing, right? They doing something, they're giving commands to a phone to show the video. So programming is basically that. So programming is basically giving commands to the computer so it can do what you want. Because computers usually they can do pretty much everything, but you need to tell them how to do it, what to do it. So
Exactly.
basically, when your kid is taking your phone, opening the app to watch a video, they kind of coding. So let's put it simply that. So your kid probably already doing coding that you don't know. So
Mhm.
for that reason, we shouldn't let them waste their time. A lot of giving them a lot of screen time where they watch unboxing of some kind of toy or something. That too many of them out there right now, right? But what we should do, try to make that as educational as possible. So coding, when we say coding, like some people might say, my kid needs to learn alphabet first, or reading, writing first, and then coding. But the thing is, uh, coding doesn't require all that. They can start giving commands to the phone or to iPad or to computer as early as possible. So I would say I wouldn't restrict to any age. I wouldn't say my kids needs to be 5 years and they will start. That is kind of a different mindset. So what I would say is as early as possible, and try to make them an environment. And we have all the opportunities now, especially now everyone has a phone, even though
Yeah.
they don't have anything. So you can start from the phone too.
But but you just made a very important point, saying that we should restrict their screen time for entertainment, I guess, for watching cartoons and or unboxing presents. So we should try to keep it educational. The question, I had from the beginning, when we thought about making this episode, how do we keep kids motivated about this? Because, is it like extra school? They already have some sort of school, and now you come to them and say that, hey, you have to learn this subject too. Wouldn't that be difficult to motivate them?
So I look at motivation as uh, right now, I look at them as, you know how commercials work, right? If you look at yourself, how commercials uh, program or motivate you to buy something, even though you don't want it, this is really gonna give you a boost uh, to make you want it. So this is psychology, right? Psychology of people. So what we don't do with kids is the commercial to our kids. So we don't use this option. Like a lot of things, for example, the videos slowly show them these toys, all that. Like it's not for free. Like unboxing a toy is very interesting for kids, but the thing is good for the toy manufacturer. So
Yeah,
they trying
whoever's
to,
making that video.
yeah, they're trying to show their toy so you can go buy them, because next time when they go to shopping, they will see the unboxed toy and God, they will want. So what we should do to kids to make them motivated, we should do stuff like that, right? Commercials in our own way. So we shouldn't let them be on their own, because most of the parents try to give them the phone and watch videos, and as long as kids are uh,
Not bothering them.
silent, yes, silent, not bothering, they'll be happy. But the problem with that, they could watch anything and not learn any other thing. So uh, like some kids are already addicted to the phone, right? So that the same thing happened with our kids, like first one especially. So when that happens, I try to make that time as well like turn it around to something useful. So when it is something useful, usually the thing with kids, they wouldn't do that too long. So that is
They
actually,
get tired probably.
yeah, they would want something else. But that way, you shouldn't give open the doors for them. Try to put guardrails and try to make that as educational as possible, even that screen time. Then try to motivate them, meaning giving them commercials, kind of
Mm.
why this thing is good. So instead of somebody else giving them commercials, like my kids, the first one used to like the Kinder eggs. Like we never showed them that, but she all of a sudden liked it because she watched from the cartoons and stuff. So the thing is, you can give them anything and they'll be motivated. These are the kids, right? So that's why before somebody else teach them that thing, we should try to motivate them ourselves, try to buy toys that is educational, try to, bring them that environment that they would eventually like. And that's what I do.
Great. Great. I think next question I have, maybe a little bit touched on it, but more specific, right? Currently, based on your observations, what are specific programming languages that are, popular between kids? I mean, your question may be different in terms of age range, but generally, what are the programming languages that specifically kids, as they go more experience into coding, should be getting into?
Yeah, there are coding languages depending on ages, as you said. So early ages, there are Blockly, they call. That is not a really programming language, but that is made a language so far. So blocks, moving blocks, putting them together. Basically, kids wouldn't know they're coding, but putting the blocks basically behind the scene, it is programming, like making this item or animal to move and get to something with blocks. So that is for earlier ages, and later ages, later meaning 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The Scratch has been very useful. I've seen like millions of people. They have stats that 50, 60 million kids using it. Good thing about it is they let you do anything, meaning they let you make games, they let you make animations, cartoons, or make things move. And actually, they make it more interesting, compete with your friends, or make games like that. Tinker as well is about making games. And the interesting part, how they make it is making that as a group activity too. So other kids can join to your game that you created and play with you, and other friend can make better game and learn, teach that. So right now for early ages, blocking blocks and Scratch is also another. They name it the programming language, but actually it's not. It is like kids programming language. Then later on, like after 10, 12, when they get older, the popular ones are now JavaScript and Python. So
After 10
those,
years old.
yeah, above 10 years old, because until then, the writing code is programming is really boring. It could get boring. That's why like Scratch and Code.org, Tinker, and all others, they try to make um, these languages uh, different view, right? Like with the blocks. So it's very interesting making games. But at the end of the day, they might have written pretty complex programming software, but they wouldn't know that because they put things and the way they want, and they just put the blocks around and gave commands. But the good thing about them, some people might say this is just blocks, like a game. But the good thing about them, it makes them to think like a programmer. And once they know how to make these games the way with the blocks, it will be very easy for them when they get to real actual program. they are pretty easy too. They when they write it, all they need to know is syntax, and then actual big thing, right? Thinking and the way how to do things and solve the problems comes from that blocks that they started early on. So that is actually really good foundation for programming or coding for later use. So that for that reason, for now, I would say like the languages I said, Python and JavaScript are not yet for kids, right? That's for adults. But again, once they know this blocking, scratch, all kinds of game type learning activities, then they can decide, right? The world is changing fast, so it may not be valid languages in near
After,
future,
yeah,
maybe
10
the,
years.
the ones I said. But blocks and thinking, the way all this kind of core stuff are going to be there. The language names could change, syntax could change, or they might get easier and easier. It is getting, and there might be some new language comes up. But the idea for all of them is same: solving the problem, giving the command to this computer to solve some kinds of problems.
And you telling as you telling this, I mean, I get excited because I have a kid who's 8 years old. Once I was in his it's personal story, right? I guess once I was in his math night, they had this night, before pandemic, of course, there was like in person gathering. That's where they first introduced him. It was a code. It was like mathematics plus computer stuff, like a kind of meeting club. So that's where they first introduced him 1 hour of code. The website called Hour of Code, and the blocks piece was actually there. He really loved it. So and that's how he kind of got into more about coding. And then I personally right now he was doing a little bit of Python, as part of his kind of, he got a book from library for his age, and was I think it was from 5 and up. But your suggestions are very valuable in terms of starting with scratch and Tinker, so that he can get the foundations, as you said, so that once they grow into more later ages, they can start into more specific coding languages like JavaScript and Python. So these suggestions are really helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I was also wondering, other than the online resources, are there any in-person events, gatherings of any kind? You just mentioned you teach courses at a center, right? Community center or something.
Yeah. There are, I mean, since people are social people, right? I mean, since pandemic, it's been different, but
Yeah.
still people want to gather together. That is how things get interesting. So still, if after pandemic, everything gets better, and people try to get together. That's no matter what, right? We are social people. So there are, for that reason, there are many in-person events that this, for example, code.org tries to make, because this is really helpful, right? Because like everyone sitting on the computer gets monotone and gets boring sometimes. So I've seen many events they try to create. Right now they're doing it online, but they try to do in-person events. They have for teachers too. They have for kids. So uh, like the platform you're using usually would have that in-person events, like in some cities, some states. So as Bahram said, like there are things they do. Even the schools try to make them, right?
Yep.
The schoolmates and some competitions. I've seen a lot with robotics too. They call robotics, but it's still coding. So they try to make robots and give them commands to make them work. So there are events. I've seen code.org making a lot of events like monthly, weekly, other than the online platform. So I would look online and find them and try to take the kids there, because it will be very helpful. Them seeing the real thing, right? Because like sitting on the computer all the time or on the phone is is another thing, but taking them outside. And for that reason, they even have coding they call unplugged, meaning not electronic, right? So those unplugged activities they have with cards or toys, so they have like outside the computer, those activities they have too. So we have to mix them together because some parents might say, "Oh, my kids needs to learn coding," and they put them always to the
In front of that
electronic.
screen, yeah.
But the same thing can happen outside too. So for that reason, for example, I've seen some friends or even us, we bought Osmo. Osmo is one of the popular platforms where they make actually the programs plus the toys. So you could put them and they have camera that you make the activity outside of the screen and they verify that within the screen. They kind of mixed it. Um, and there are other toys out there I know of is you buy a toy, it is kind of robot, but you give commands from the app. So that is very
Oh, nice.
interesting too. So Robot Wonder Kid is one of them, and some other tools out there is you buy the toy, they come with the app on the phone, you install it, and you give commands like walk 2 steps, turn, and do this, all kinds of stuff. And that toy, the app will give the command to the toy and it will do it. So this is very interesting for parents who want to buy a toy that not buying regular car or some other things, you could actually make him
Code.
code buy the toy. So that could be interesting. Maybe that's for older ages, right? For very young, it might not be very interesting, but the kids get older and they 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 might really like this activities because usually when you buy a toy for a kid, they if you guys have kids, they play 1 or 2 days and it
And
gets
that's
old.
it.
They don't play anymore. But with this, the good thing about this programming toys is they can do many activities, right? So that gives them refresher. So it doesn't get really old because it doesn't do the same thing all the time. So the way how much they are creative kids become, this toy is going to do more things. So that could be really interesting. So I would spend my money when I want to buy toys for toys like that.
And what did you call the name of it again? What was the name? What was the name of that toy?
One is Robo Wonder Kid. Robo Wonder Kid is one, and there are a couple more. I totally forgot their names, but I can find them and give it to you. They're
Yeah,
all
yeah,
mobile,
would be
so you
great.
can buy them online. Yeah, and Osmo is one of them.
Okay, yeah, that one. Yes, you mentioned Osmo. So, and for our listeners and actually YouTube viewers, we'll try to put all the relevant information that Bekzot has been sharing in the description of this episode because he's been giving very important information that I think as people listening to the show they can refer to the description and click on those links to be able to understand better about what programming languages he was mentioning or these specific toys that are actually coding toys that kids will be will benefit from those and parents will be also happy talking related to parents, right? So again, it's kids and parents topic. um Parents watching here may say, hey, but not every kid out there is going to be coder when they grow up, right? Not every kid is going to be IT programmer or they're going to get into IT. Some people will be doctors, some people will be accountants, some people will be engineers, so there's different things. But generally, there is suggestions out there that coding is useful for people, for kids at any age, any type of with any type of background. What are your personal thoughts about it? Why coding is important for kids?
Yeah, we can put it this way. We as parents, younger, but our parents, right, the older age, they had different perspectives. Now we are seeing that rapid change, the technology ourselves, and our kids are young. For younger parents, right, they might understand better. So we should look at those older, our parents, and us, that difference, and we need to put that difference into perspective. And we had that mind, right? Only computer people, uh, some people do computers, or we still have people who think the coding is actually fixing the computer, which is not, right? So some people
Mhm.
might think you don't like not everyone should be coder, but uh, right now the way the world is changing is actually proving that to be not true. Even the doctors, like take any other profession, right? They still need computer knowledge, computer literacy in any case, right? Like even doctors before in my age, like 10, 20 years ago, were not using computers this way. I, like today, they're using it very differently. Like when you go to doctor now, they always look at the computer. Like half of their work is on the computer. Like half of their work is looking at you. But that's getting like computers are everywhere now, right? So in our life, especially now with the phones, uh, before not everyone had a phone, the digital phones, right? Now everyone has it, and this came into every house, and every job is now transforming themselves to be more efficient, better. But for that reason, everything has a computer. And one thing to take, right? The cars have more computer coding related
Mhm.
things than we think, and they are changing rapidly. And it's for good, right? Because for example, like nowadays new cars are coming out with sensors, extra safety senses, all kinds of stuff that technology is making them better, safer. So looking at cars, like everyone gonna drive a car. Like you don't become professional driver, but still you're going to be a driver. So your kid's going to be a driver.
Mhm.
So that is, I would look at another profession, right? Driving is also a profession. You get a license, you learn. So your kids, it is part of their life. So this is how to say, like their profession might not be coding, but coding and computer literacy is there in their profession, whoever they're going to be. So when we talk about coding or teaching kids code or programming, people, this is normal, right? People think the same thing, like, oh, if they learn coding, they have to be programmers. They don't
Mhm.
have to be. So we should break that down. We should find the medium, the correct thinking on that, right? Because your kid knowing coding doesn't have to be a coder, but they can be a doctor, but know coding and computers really well. Um, so for that reason, the coding is benefits the the researchers, right, find is basically coding teaches kids to uh, solve problems, right, to be creative and be successful in life. So no matter who they want to become, they will still need this. So basically, looking at how technology is transforming and growing, this is as important as alphabet, right? As important as reading and writing. So if you look at it, parents won't say anything about reading and writing when it comes to learning, right? Everyone gonna read and write, but they're not gonna say like this is not related to some profession. Like reading and writing is as important
The
as
basic tool,
everywhere.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
basic tool basically. Yeah.
So coding also is becoming to that or already become to that level that they need to know and they need to know how things work. uh, that actually gives them advantage in life, right? Because technology world right now, world is basically technology world. So for that reason, your kids need to know reading, writing, that is very important, and coding as well, like computers, because they're always going to have a phone no matter what. You can't stop them. So, uh, like you're not going to let your kid out without a phone now. I think that is now a norm. Before, we wouldn't do that. Like, we wouldn't give phones to kids. But now it is becoming a norm. Like, every kid has a phone. So, um, for that reason, I would say it is as important as reading, as important as writing, and they need to know that. They don't have to become professional coders. They can become doctors, they can become whoever they want, but they it is always helpful and useful to know coding, and it's going to be always needed. The kids who don't know coding or who are far away, they they still do coding no matter what you want. As I said before, they have a phone, they need to give commands to the phone. So it doesn't hurt for them to know that better. It doesn't hurt
Mhm.
for them to know this thing um, more, because our brains, so our kids' brains, are really big, I would say, and they take a lot of information. So we should fill them with important information as much as possible, and when
Useful. Yeah.
it is
That's a
taken.
very that's a hot topic. Filling important information for kids' brain and everybody's brain is hot topic nowadays, especially because everybody's at home. So this is yeah,
Yeah.
your suggestions are really valuable.
Yeah, this was very insightful, very informative, Bekzot. We appreciate your time. We might have taken advantage of your hospitality here, but thanks a lot. This was very useful, I believe. And to our viewers, subscribers, please let us know if you would like to get into this topic even more in the future or any other topics. Feel free to comment, send emails to immigrantbazaar@gmail.com. And thank you very much, Bekzot, again. It was really informative. Thanks a lot.
Thank you
Yes.
for inviting me too, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Bekzot. It was a pleasure having you in our show, and you have a great day and rest of the weekend.
You too.
Thank you.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.